Welcome to the Minnesota Rovers Tuesday evening presentation. Minnesota Rovers is an outdoors club based in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Our members organize trips that range from 1 hour to 2 weeks in Minnesota or further afield. Examples of our activities include hiking, biking, backpacking, skiing, snowshoeing, paddling, and rock climbing. We also organize conservation and trail clearing trips. Our members have experience and skills in many outdoor activities, so if you want to learn a new outdoor activity, we can probably help you. For more information, go to mnrovers.org. Now let's move on to this week's presentation.
You are here to hear from Bonnie Schutte, who is with the director of the Chik-Wauk Museum and Nature Center. Bonnie's husband brought her up to the Gunflint Trail for the first time in 1990, and they have stayed ever since. We are so jealous, Bonnie. Bonnie has lived on the Gunflint Trail for 34 years year-round and has worked at numerous outfitters and lodges over the years. In 2015, she was hired by the Gunflint Trail Historical Society to be the campus director of Chik-Wauk. Her hometown is Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin. She loves to get out hiking, paddling, and most of all, she loves to fish. So please welcome tonight's speaker, Bonnie Schutte.
Well, I hope you all are enjoying and having a wonderful evening.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a lot of rain here today. They said if it would have snowed, we would have had over 30 inches of snow. That's how much rain that fell in Grand Marais area. So we're hoping for snow soon so we can get out snowshoeing and doing some cross-country skiing. Unfortunately, last year was kind of dismal for us. So we're excited for this winter. So as Stacy mentioned, I am the campus director up at Chik-Wauk Museum and Nature Center. And one of your members nominated me to do this presentation this evening, and her name is Betty Hempstead. And Betty was very instrumental in getting the Chik-Wauk Museum and Nature Center started, actually starting with the Gunflint Trail Historical Society back in 2005. So some of these photos are ones that Betty had taken when they first walked into the old Chik-Wauk Lodge back in 2005 to see if this would be a good spot for a museum. Chik-Wauk, as starters, people are always wondering, what does Chik-Wauk mean? And Chik-Wauk, they believed, is derived from an Ojibwe word roughly meaning pine or white pine. And it is translated to Chik-Wauk. And so that's Zhingwaak. And so we don't know their first owners, Art and Ed Nunstead, why they chose that name, but that is what's been there ever since 1931. And this is our entrance into our museum. We have a beautiful flower garden in the summer that's right outside the museum. So like I mentioned, the Nunstead family, they are the ones that created Chik-Wauk Lodge back in 1931. On the far upper right corner, that is the original lodge, and that burnt down the day before they were to open back in 1932. I think that lodge is just spectacular with the roof line and the logs and everything, and it's just a shame that when they rebuilt it, they were being very resourceful because it was in the 30s. They went around and collected all the stone that you see for the upper left corner picture as well as the bottom picture from the area. So all that stone was collected by the father and son, and then they got some outerwork local stonemasons to come up. And so that structure was built back in 1934, and it is still standing to this day. That is where Chik-Wauk Museum is housed is in that old lodge building. So there on the bottom left is where Art and Ida Nunstead, and that's the first creators of Chik-Wauk Lodge. The last owners were Ralph and B. Griffith, and so they had bought it in 1957, and they operated it until 1980. Ralph and B are up on the upper left-hand corner. You can see Ralph and B on the right there with a gentleman and a bear. Well, that was during the Hams beer commercials. So in the late 1970s, Ham's Brewery had hired this gentleman that looks like Grizzly Adams. His name is Earl Hammond. And he's from Pennsylvania, and he had Sasha the bear. And Ham's Brewery hired him to come up and film a lot of those commercials that you all hear, and you know the jingle too. And they were filmed right on the property at Chik-Wauk Lodge. Some of them was filmed up on Saganaga Lake. But we do have proof that they stayed on property at Chik-Wauk in the late 70s. And so that's one of our little claim to fames we like to put out there, is that some of the Hamm's beer commercials were shot on property at Chik-Wauk. The other photo is actually what Chik-Wauk Lodge used to look like back in the day when it was a full running resort. The lodge is kind of tucked back into the trees. Otherwise, that's a dock house down in the waterfront there, outfitting building, nice sand beach, which unfortunately we do not have a nice sand beach anymore. But it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous view of what the resort used to look like back when it was in full operations in the 60s and the 70s. So here are some comparison photos. On the left, of course, is what Chik-Wauk Lodge used to look like back in the day. Some of these are postcards that were from the 50s and the 60s. The middle upper picture is what it looked like when they first walked into the lodge back in 2005, when they were first looking at it to see if it would be a good museum. And then the other two modern ones, you can kind of see how the fireplace has changed, but it's still the same fireplace in those old photos on the left-hand side. And so this was the main lodge. This is where the guests would have came in and ate their meals. They would have told their fish stories, because back in that time frame, it was an American plan style resort, meaning the guests would have came in, ate their meals in here, and then they would have stayed at one of the 12 cabins that used to be here when it was ran as a resort. And then this is the other side of the fireplace that you see. Again, a dining room is in the main lodge there. The old barrel stove, Ralph and Bee had that in there. They tried to stay in that lodge one winter, and that building is not winterized. It's all stone. There is no insulation between them. So as like right now, the building is totally closed down. It's too hard to heat in the winter. And so we're only open Memorial Weekend until the middle of October. And again, more shots and pictures of what the inside of that building used to look like. And then the bottom picture is Sue Kerfoot along with Betty Hempstead. And those were two of the driving forces to get the Chik-Wauk Museum and Nature Center up to what you see. And so then the Gunflint Trail Historical Society was formed, and it took about, let's see, they signed an agreement with the Forest Service in 2007 to acquire a special use agreement from the Forest Service to lease the Chik-Wauk building as well as 50 acres. And so it took 3 years, a lot of hard work, a lot of fundraising. It was almost $1 million to get that museum building up to what we have now with the displays. Like on the bottom left, you can see the displays that are in the building. But it took a lot of hard work and volunteer hours, and it's just amazing. It's a testament to the community how many people came for the need. They knew that the rich history of the Gunflint Trail wasn't being told. And so that's why the Gunflint Trail Historical Society was formed, to tell the history of our area. And I'm so proud of all the hard work that everybody did for this. So here are some more photos from inside the museum now. We have a nice little animal display, a diorama that kind of shows what people might see out in the woods. We have a little library area, another area with the Gunflint neighbors. And that is our main theater section there. So we do have some videos in there as well. But we were so busy that in 2015, we had Chik-Wauk Museum and Nature Center, but now we needed a nature center. So the Gunflint Trail Historical Society got a plan going to add more buildings to our campus. And of course, since we're on Forest Service land, we do have to go through the Forest Service if we're going to be adding any new buildings or anything to the property, since we are on leased land. But in 2016, we opened up the Nature Center. And ever since we added that building, our attendance numbers have grown. It was kind of dwindling down a little bit in 2013, 14, 15. So we're like, okay, we need to get people back up here again. And so then the Nature Center was added. And inside, we have so many fun activities for people of all ages. It's not just for children. We do a lot of presentations in the summer where we might have, let's see, we had Lee Freelick come up this summer, and we have people that, geology people, biologists, plants. I mean, it's just amazing the different amount of different presentations that we offer during the summer. And we do record all our presentations, and they are located on our website, which at the end of this, I do have our website listed. But you can definitely go back and look at all our presentations through the years. And it's kind of fun just to check out all the different presenters that we had. On the far right, we do have that little mini inflatable planetarium thing that you see in our nature center. It's the University of Minnesota Duluth. We are in partnership with them on this little planetarium inflatable. And so we do offer dark sky presentations that are projected inside that little, it's kind of cool. And then we do have this, our little kids. We have a lot of youth groups that come up in the summer. The little kids on the far left corner, that is from Grand Portage. And those were all little preschoolers, and they had never gone on that long an adventure to drive all the way from Grand Portage up the Gunflint Trail. So they were on the bus over an hour and a half one way. And oh my gosh, they had such a great time, and it was so fun to see their little faces and everything too. In 2019, we had an energetic group of people that volunteered their time, and they created this beautiful timber frame structure down at the North House Folk School. It was actually created in 2017, and it kind of had to sit a year before they could bring it up to our site. And so it sat in storage for over a year. And then in 2018 is when they constructed it back on the Chik-Wauk campus. And inside that bottom picture, you can see we have different watercraft in there. We have actually some from Anishinaabe family that lived up on Northern Light Lakes, and that was the Blackjack family. There is a motor tree. So it's a whole bunch of old outboard motors that are all stacked up on this big tall tree. And so they're all different ages. So it's kind of cool to see all the different years and how the Evinrude motor has progressed through the years. But we have a lot of different watercraft. One Justine Kerfoot's canoe is in there at the moment. Benny Ambrose, he was a gentleman that lived up on Knife Lake. So like in Ely, they had Dorothy Moulter. On this side of the Boundary Waters, we had Benny Ambrose. And Benny was able to live his final days up onto a Knife Lake. And even after the Boundary Waters was established, he was still able to stay there. He was grandfathered in. Another building that we added in 2019 is our American Plan cabin exhibit. Of course, up on our right is Miss Betty Hempstead. She helped us with this project too. It's not a replica, but it is a cabin, and it's built on the site where one of the old cabins used to stand when this was a working resort. They called it the Judge's Cabin. We don't have any record of if there was a judge staying there. We don't know why it was called the Judge's Cabin, but we have kind of an inkling of what we think a 1950 style cabin might have looked like, and that's in the photographs below. And so that is kind of how we set the cabin up. So some of those are original artifacts, like in the middle, light fixture hanging from the ceiling. That is from Hungry Jack Lodge, and that was from the earlier days. The one above the table, actually Billy Needham, he hand carved that. And Billy Needham was a bachelor that lived down by Hungry Jack Lake and West Bearskin Lake. So some of the artifacts we have in there, Justine Kerfoot's table, her chairs, is period to 1950 style time. And it's a spectacular view. If you walk out on that front porch, you can just walk and look down the corridor of Saganaga Lake, and that's one of the entry points into the Boundary Waters as well as into the Quetico Park. On Chik-Wauk Campus, we have lots of hiking trails. I believe there is, I'm trying to think off the top of my head now, 8 hiking trails. One of them, the longest one, Blueberry Hill, that is a mile long. It's a mile up and a mile back down. We have some ADA accessible ones. Down in the bottom, you'll see our boardwalk trail, and it kind of goes out to a nice little sitting area in the bog. And that's one of our ADA accessible trails. The Tamarack, we just have just beautiful trails that just, as you can see, meander through the woods. A lot of the trails we have, if you've ever looked onto our Chik-Wauk Facebook page, you will see on Tuesday, we do Trail Camera Tuesday. And so we like to showcase the critters that have been walking on these trails. And recently we have Leon the Lynx. He has been around for many years. We've had a moose lately, as well as a coyote, which it's very surprising. We don't have many coyotes, but the coyote and the lynx, they walk the same trail. It might be within hours of each other, and it just doesn't seem like they bother each other. They kind of coexist like people do with the animals here. So it's kind of fun to go check the trail cameras and see what we get. The far bottom picture on the right is our Trapper Shack exhibit. We just opened that last year. It's actually the old pump house to the old museum, or the lodge, I should say. And it's perfect size. It actually looks like an old Trapper Shack. It's right down by the waterfront. And so Bruce Kerfoot and Bill Douglas, two of the older senior people up here, they're like, that needs to be a Trapper Shack. And so that's one of our new exhibit buildings that we've added. Along with the buildings, we have lots to explore and check out. We actually have a loon's nest that has been in our bay at Chik-Wauk since 2007. And every year we've been getting a nesting pair of loons, except for the last 2 years. We had a flood. The waters were really high up here and the nest flooded. And so we didn't have any loons sitting on the nest. But last year we did have some sit on the nest, and we did have 2 hatchlings. They hatched the earliest ever. It was the end of May 30th and May 31st. This year we're going to be adding a live feed to the loon's nest. So we have an IT person that's been working with a camera that's going to sit on the nest. And we are going to be live streaming that. So as soon as the ice leaves, we usually put the nest out right away. And within like a couple days, those adults are there right away. So we're really they're on a time. We know when they're going to be coming. We got to get the ice goes out. We got to get that nest on the water right away. And as you can see, we have beautiful flowers, the moccasin flowers. We have our links on the bottom. On the right bottom, we have some of the presentations that the Forest Service does in our Nature Center. And then on the upper right corner is our all-sky camera. And so we have this all-sky camera that is on the roof of the Chik-Wauk Museum, and it's in partnership with the University of Minnesota Duluth Planetarium. And this is one evening, I believe this was in March of this year, when the Northern Lights were just going crazy. And all of these images, it takes it all a minute every hour, every minute it's taking a photograph, and then it's compiling a video at the end of the day, and it's going to be uploaded on our Facebook page, the Chik-Wauk All Sky Camera, as well as on the University of Minnesota Duluth Planetarium website. They upload the video as well. So all of these videos, oh my gosh, we've had the camera up there for 3 years now. So every night, all those camera pictures are uploaded, and you are able to see them and check out these beautiful, beautiful views. Right now, the camera's down. We had a power outage up here last week. And so right now we're trying to get it fixed. But thankfully, it's cloudy, it's rainy. You don't have to worry about missing any beautiful views. But we do have that we offer as well. And then, of course, that's the campus. So that you can see the Nature Center and then the museum, and we're right on the edge in the bay at Chik-Wauk. And that was the last of my slides. I hope I didn't take it too short, but I wanted to leave some time for some answers. If anybody has any questions for me, I would love to answer anything.
Bonnie, this is Melissa. I had typed a note in the chat.
I see that. Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, all the cabins went in 1978, the Forest Service came in and bought out the last owners, Ralph and B. Griffin.
Okay.
And so it was that time when there was a lot of little mom and pop operations up here on the Gunflint Trail. And I believe there was 5 different small resorts that got bought out that were on Saganaga Lake at that time. Ralph and Bee did not have any children to pass the resort on to, and so the Forest Service had first right of refusal. So unfortunately, they had to sell off to the Forest Service, and that was in 1978. And so then they had 2 more years that they could operate Chik-Wauk Lodge. And right after that, then that's when the Forest Service came in. They dismantled all the outpost buildings. There was 12 of them, and besides also the staff housing, and they auctioned them off. So that's why there is no cabins or any other buildings left on property. But Ralph and Bee were very, very smart. They told the Forest Service, fine, we're selling out, but we want to remain in control of the land for 20 years. And they couldn't operate it as a business anymore, but they could come up and stay there in the summer. So Ralph and Bee still kept coming up in the summertime and staying in the old lodge. So that's why there was a barrel stove in there, and that's why you saw a bed in one corner. So Ralph and Bee were still able to use that property until 1999. And that's probably what saved the lodge from getting taken down. Because the Forest Service came in and took down all the other buildings, they probably would have taken down that stone building as well. There is some resort, right? If you were to continue up by us on that gravel road, if you continued on, there was an old resort called End of the Trail Lodge. They were bought out the same time that Chik-Wauk Lodge was bought out. There is nothing left of that old resort. You can find some old cement footings in the woods, but all the buildings were taken down, dismantled, auctioned off, and there was nothing left. So that's why it's kind of nice that Ralph and Bee put that little stipulation in the sale, because I have a feeling that beautiful lodge wouldn't be standing today if they hadn't said, we want to use this for the next 20 years. So very grateful for Ralph and Bee.
Bonnie?
Yes.
There's a question from Jane. She apparently must be somewhat familiar with this area, but she was wondering why there no longer is a sandy beach.
It's kind of because I think Ralph and Bee kept it. Let's see, they would actually truck sand in. And as through the years, and then as the resort sold and the Forest Service didn't keep up on it, it just kind of went back to the land. So now it's kind of a boggy little area there. It's not as nice as it used to be. It would be nice to have that back, but I know a lot of it has washed away through the years of, the flooding that we've had and other instances that way.
You might have said this, I can't remember, but when are you open?
We are open. Usually it's the Saturday of Memorial Weekend until the middle of October, which they have MEA weekend. That Sunday is when we close. So we're only open 149 days. And it's been good. Like I mentioned, the last 2 years, we did have flooding. In 2022, that was when the Rainy River watershed, so International Falls, was flooded. And Saganaga Lake is part of that Rainy River watershed. So when that flooded in International Falls, our water level went up as they were running down. And so we were actually 2 feet over water. So that parking lot right in front of the Nature Center, that water was up to the middle of those stairs that are going up into that building. None of the buildings were flooded, but our roadway was, so we couldn't drive in. I ended up walking in, it was in May. I ended up walking in to try to get the gift shop items and get the buildings opened and cleaned up and ready for everybody to come, hoping that we would open on time. And then last year we didn't open because we had the high snowfall and we were about 18 inches flooded. So this was our first year since 2019 that actually we were opened 149 days. And our attendance was almost 9,000 people. It was the best gift shop year for our gift shop sales as well as our admission that we've had on record. So it was a very, very good year. We do charge admission. It is $6 for anybody 19 to 64. If you are 65 and older or military, it's $5. And then children, we are at $2. And we have different things going on pretty much any day of the week. As the summer progresses, we have presentations that are offered on Saturdays and Sundays in our nature center. We have a kids' day on Tuesday, so a lot of the resorts like to take advantage of that up here, where they'll send the families up on Tuesday and kids can go down to the waterfront and catch tadpoles if they want. They could get out and hike on the trails and explore the different scat or something that they might find. Let's see. Wednesdays, we have the Forest Service up and they do a nature presentation on the front porch. Oh, we've been doing guided hikes on the weekends as well. We have a dark sky program that's offered in August. So we always have lots of things to look at. Our website has a calendar of events. So we like to definitely have people check out our website. That's usually updated first. Our website is. I always like to put on the calendar events page. And then the website, of course, is gunflinthistory.org. And so we have our side of our Chik-Wauk Museum, and then we also have the side with the Gunflint Trail Historical Society that you can check out how to donate, be a member, anything like that for our historical society.
And you're open Monday through Friday, or
7 days a week. Yep. 7
a
days a week. Yep. And it's usually 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Oh, wow, okay.
But you can come up and hike anytime. So if any of you are in the area, even this winter, want to snowshoe our hiking trails, you're more than welcome to. We have the gate closed in the winter, but you can just park out by the gate, but you can access the hiking trails any time of the year, day or night. We've had people walk at night. I've seen them on the trail cameras and I'm just like, what the heck? But yeah, they're out there hiking at night, I guess trying to get the last little sunset or something up on Blueberry Hill.
Bonnie, if we came up to explore, would we be bringing our own lunches and food? Do you have any kind of munchy stuff?
We have very little munchy stuff.
Okay.
We have no running water on site, so it is outhouses.
Okay. That's good to know. Okay.
Yeah. But the outhouses, from what I've heard, are the cleanest in the Cook County. So
Okay. All right.
But no, we have no running water, but we do have usually like some containers of water out for people to use. We tried to do a pop machine up there, but the thing kept breaking because, of course, it sits in the winter. We cover it and it doesn't work. The closest spot that there was food available was at Gunflint Lodge. There used to be a cafe at the end of the trail. We're trying to help them open up again because it's kind of sparse up on our end for anybody with food or, snacks or anything. But we have great picnic tables around the area. So you're more than welcome to bring your picnic lunch and sit out, even on the front porch of the cabin. We've had people just go out on the front porch and just have their lunch and look out onto the Saganaga corridor. It's kind of cool that way.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Trying to think if there's anything else. Trying to remember.
So Bonnie, just for the folks who are somewhat familiar with that area, if they're going to the end of the trail campground, do they go by you?
No. Oh, yes, they do. Sorry, I'm confused. Yes, they do go by us first.
Okay.
So we're about 1.25 miles from the very end of the Gunflint Trail.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, they will come to us first. They'll see our big sign, Chik-Wauk sign, and then they can come in. It's a little hard sometimes on presentation days. So if they are bringing a camper or a boat or anything, it would be at best almost if they would park the boat or camper at their campsite or leave it there. We do once in a while get people that are traveling through that, oh, we're going to go camp at the end of the trail, and then they have a hard time turning around because it is kind of crammed parking a lot. We do have handicap parking up by the museum, and so a lot of our buildings are wheelchair accessible. The Nature Center, we do have a ramp that goes up to the side, the same with the museum. The Watercraft building is wheelchair accessible. The Trapper Shack and the cabin is not, but those are the ones. But everybody always likes to come in the museum and watch the videos on the history of the Gunflint Trail. There's the one on Justine Kerfoot that was done with the PBS special back in 1986 that talks about her life and her times at Gunflint Lodge. We have a lot of history in there on the resorts, past and current. So if there was an old resort that maybe your family used to come up and stay at and are wondering what that place was, we can usually search it out. We've had actually people come up and ask about the CCC camps on the Gunflint Trail. There was a gentleman that researched all 5 sites on the Gunflint Trail, and he actually got rosters. So we do have books in our archives that if you're looking for a grandparent that worked on the CCC that you knew they did some work up on the Gunflint Trail, we can usually try and find that person. And we have done that before in the past too. So that's kind of fun. We have a little research area there in the corner that we're more than welcome to help with. And also families. If any of your families have ever been up on the trail or have had a cabin on the trail, we're always interested in hearing about that. Definitely love to learn more. There's always something. Everybody walks in that door and I always ask them, what's your connection to the Gunflint Trail? And somebody always has, I worked at this resort when I was a youngster. And so it's great to hear those stories. They never get old. I love learning more about the area. Thank you.
And just a question, I'm curious, you've mentioned that you guys do presentations and you've mentioned a couple of them, but what kind of presentations do you do?
We've had, let's see, one we recently had was David Battistel, and this is also recorded on our site. He is the history teacher up in Thunder Bay at the high school. And David Battistel has researched the PD Railroad. So this railroad went from Thunder Bay along the U.S.-Canadian border, along Gunflint Lake, and over to the Chik-Wauk Trail. And they had thought that there was a rich iron ore deposit near the Chik-Wauk Trail. And there was a little city there called Gunflint City. So this is in the late 1800s when this was all taking place. This railroad was being built. And David talks, we've had him numerous times actually. So he talks all about the construction of the railroad, some of it being logging, some of it being iron ore. And they were able to take out 1 carload of iron ore out of the Chik-Wauk mines. Whoever tested it, they thought they had a vein like they did over in Hibbing and Chisholm. And they didn't. It was poor quality. So here they spent all that time building a railroad. And back then, how much money did that cost to build that railroad? And it was a bust. All that iron core produced was this little melted down, they created into a horseshoe. And it wasn't Thunder Bay Historical Society Museum in their archives until last fall, when I requested it, that if we could have it on display at Chik-Wauk, because it came from the Chik-Wauk Trail area. It came from Minnesota, but it was smelted down up in Port Arthur in 1898. August 26th, 1898 is when it was smelted down. And so that's one of our presentations. We have John Craddock, and he was from Marshall University, and he was a geologist. So we have had him speak. We've had another local, Jim Block. He's a meteorologist, and he talked about the windstorm that we had up here in 1999, that derecho wind. And so we have a presentation on with him. We've had Teresa Marone. She is an author on wild edibles, mushrooming. she has a cabin up here on Birch Lake, but she also lives down in the cities. And so she has talked numerous times on wild edibles, dehydrating foods, and some of her books that she has written. A lot of authors, Cary Griffith, he was another one that came up and talked this summer actually about his recent book, Gunflint Falling, and that's on the windstorm. He's also written Gunflint Burning, which was on the Ham Lake fire that we had up here in 2007. So I mean, it just ranges from all over the board. We try to get all sorts of different people, and if any of you want to come up, we're more than welcome to have you come up and speak. It's anything photography. We have a great photographer, Mark Ellis, that he has talked and presented a class. Artists, different artists. Kim Gordon from the city, she's come up and did some batik classes, Blatic costs, sorry. But she did that last fall. So, I mean, there's just so many.
Okay. Well, are there any final questions for Bonnie about Chik-Wauk? Or
So we are an hour from Grand Marais. I should stress that. Even though our address says Grand Marais, we are a good hour's drive. We tell people, if you're going to drive up the Gunflint Trail, make sure you have more than a half a tank of gas, I would say. If you're heading down, if you have a quarter tank of gas, you're fine. You can get to Grand Marais, but don't push it because it's really hard up here. There's not a lot of gas stations. There's resorts that do sell gas, but unfortunately, they get charged a higher price, so they have to charge a higher price. Weekdays are a lot quieter than weekends. So if you are able to travel up here on a weekday, definitely do that. It's a lot more enjoyable instead of the crowds on the weekends. If you're looking for moose, that's one of my number one questions. I always tell people to come up in June. That's when they're having their babies. That's when most people will see them on the Gunflint Trail, kind of around the swampy areas, or in, I would say, October is when they're in rut. And so that's when you're going to see more of the moose are going to start moving around again. But July and August, that's the hottest part of summer. They are usually tucked back into the woods, into the swamps. So it's not a good time to see them. I usually tell people June or late September, October is when you definitely will see moose. But yeah, plan accordingly. Like I say, it's a full hour drive up, hour and a half sometimes if you're going to take your time and look around. So make a day of it, bring a lunch along, bring some water, snacks, and then just kind of take your time going back and checking out the different hiking trails along the way as well.
well,
Thank you.
thank you, Bonnie, so much. I really appreciate it. And when you talk to Betty, please tell her thank you too for all her hard work. Yep.
This year is going to be our 20th anniversary of the GTH, the Gunflint Trail Historical Society, and then the 15th anniversary of opening of Chik-Wauk. So we are going to be doing a temporary exhibit to highlight both of them and also to pay tribute to the many volunteers that created the Chik-Wauk Museum.
And so that will be this coming year?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Good.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for watching this Minnesota Rovers presentation. If you want to see more, please click on the link to our channel or the subscribe button below. Thank you.